Assalamu alaikum, hello, and welcome back to the Staying Woke podcast, episode 3. Thank you for your support on the last one, the revival. We're back, regular episodes, inshallah. Follow us on Instagram at Staying Woke Podcast. You can listen to it on iTunes
Yup.
at Staying Woke Podcast. You can watch this video on YouTube at Staying Woke Podcast.
And
SoundCloud, Staying
Ooh.
Woke Podcast. And we're going to try and get on, I think, another platform, but I don't know.
is there any other platforms worth putting on?
I think for Androids, isn't it?
Oh,
because
Android has one as well. Yeah?
Androids, they can't use iTunes,
Ah.
and SoundCloud is only streaming, so something where you can download it.
Does Android have a platform for it?
yeah, I
for
think-
podcasts.
Castbox or Spotify is on both thingy.
Works.
We'll see, inshallah. We're in a learning process, but we're getting there.
Inshallah.
How you been, Ashraf?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
So today I think we're going to talk about the situation in Sudan. Over the last 2-3 weeks, there's been quite a lot of social media talk about this, and so
Definitely.
quite a lot of youth and people who are on social media, everyone's kind of aware now, but there's still been very little to no coverage on mainstream media about the situation in Sudan. So I think it's important for us to talk about that and for us to highlight and understand what's happening, and then to have a discussion about, how that's affecting different people. So
Should we start with what's happening right now in Sudan, or how people are reacting to
well, okay, I think what we've seen is a lot of people starting to react to what's happening, but the majority of people are still fairly unaware. I think the general understanding of people is that, we know that there's been killings, we know that there's been rape, and we know that there's been protests,
Yeah.
but it's very unclear as to who's been doing the killings,
Yeah.
what the protests are even about.
Sure.
Everyone's been changing their DPs to blue. We'll get into that later on as to understanding of that, but that's just, everyone's changing the DPs to blue, and that's trying to raise awareness of Sudan issue. But there's little understanding of what's happening. Everyone's putting this hashtag pray for Sudan.
Yes.
But that pray for Sudan, no one really knows, what am I praying for? I'm just praying for people getting
What
killed.
do you want for Sudan?
Exactly.
What do we want for Sudan?
Exactly.
yeah.
So we know that there's been stuff happening. I think let's go back. Let's go to the beginnings. Let's have a little bit of background information about Sudan and go from there and see how it links to what's happening today.
Yeah. So let's just start off with the sit-ins. That's when we saw the million people sitting outside the military council. So that happened on the 6th of April.
2019.
2019, yes. Where the people of the city of Khartoum and many other towns came together and protested, led by the SPA, the Sudanese Professional Association, Associates, who are a group of professionals, doctors, engineers, or whatever profession they practice, and they're leading this protest. And their objective, the SPA, is to establish what they demand from the government is the freedom to be able to choose their leader, the betterment of their conditions as a nation, i.e. better living conditions. As we know, Sudan is very, very poor, generally speaking, as a country. The people, we were talking about this before, it cost what, £10 you said for a slice of bread?
I think, yeah,
10 Sudanese
currently
pounds.
it's costing 10 Sudanese pounds for a slice of bread, whereas a few months ago, for about a year ago or so, it was £10 for the whole loaf. So you can see how mass hyperinflation is occurring. And we were talking about how this is caused because Sudan has because of basically in 2011, they had the big split between South Sudan and Northern Sudan, where they were one country, and because they have two different societies. North Sudan is mainly Arab speaking and Muslim, and the Southern Sudan, they don't speak Arabic, they speak other languages. They're generally tribes and more like desert kind of people. So they have a different lifestyle, and so they were all ruled under just one government, and just as though they're one people, but they're not one people. So they had a lot of civil war, and in 2011 they had a big split. So South Sudan became independent to the rest of Sudan.
What,
And-
did that happen on its own? Did they just say, okay, you know what, you have your land, we have our lands? Or was there kind of...
No, there was intervention from America and from other powers across the world who came in, and then because of all the civil wars that were happening, they kind of came in. I think it was the UN as well. They came in and they kind of said, because actually it's deeper than that. Basically, you had the leader of Sudan as a whole, South Sudan and North Sudan together, and second in power they had they put in the leader of essentially the Southern Sudan, the leader of the representative for all of Southern Sudan. They put him second in power, but they obviously, you had a dictatorship government. They didn't exactly cooperate, so there was still a lot of corruption and everything like that. So they kind of just basically made South Sudan an independent country. But South Sudan holds most of the oil reserves that Sudan has. And over the last 30 years or so, Sudan has made its economy more dependent upon oil. And so because of that, the split caused a lot of problems in North Sudan, because it meant that the economy is now, just centrally broken because all their oil is gone. South Sudan became independent. So since then, there's been a lot of hyperinflation in terms of the economy. There's been just a lot of poverty. And so there's been protests actually ever since 2011.
Yes.
But they were mainly led by the youth, school children, that kind of stuff. And they weren't getting much coverage. But I think in December, you had a few in the villages, and in the other places you had some protests. And then in the news and media in Sudan started getting coverage of those things. And so they started spreading towards Khartoum, Darfur, the capitals and the main cities in Sudan. And that's when we started seeing the mass amount of people started coming to the streets.
Yeah, so you're right. So on the 22nd of December, the people came out and protested for the right to a better life, the right to to better job opportunities, and that went on for a while. And like you said, that wasn't getting as much media coverage. It was, but not on this scale now.
Okay, so those kind of little protests, they were just the ones who were more focused on, we need a better life, we need,
that's exactly
we deserve our rights, we deserve to have food and not jobs. Okay,
definitely. So that was from the 22nd December. That's what the protests were about, to better their current situation. Then, subhanAllah, there was a change in the call. Then they said, you know what? Forget about asking for a better way of life. We just want you guys to get out of power. We want the current government, Omar Bashir, to step down, and we want to choose our government rather than.
But it was quite a sudden shift, though, wasn't it?
It was definitely.
In terms of it was over fairly a few days, really, wasn't it? And it's quite interesting to see how the people then just kind of got sick of his regime, because he was quite oppressive as a ruler as well.
Most definitely.
And
I think, a lot of people don't realise that killings from Omar Bashir's government were happening a long time before they got covered in the media now. Even before the staying outside the military council, there was killings way before that, but the media didn't cover it. So people assumed that, it's because the people are sitting in front of the military council and blocking the main road within Khartoum that they're getting shot at. But no, people were getting killed way before then.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah, and like I said, on the 6th of April, that's when the sit-in officially happened. Million people, and then within the next few days, Omar Bashir was
I think it was 11th of April.
11th of April.
They made the statement that Omar Bashir, the ruler for 33 years or whatever, he's vanished.
They said they done a coup.
Yeah, they put him in a secure location. They said
secure apparently.
And
he looks chilled, bro. He did not look like he was in prison, bro. He looked like he was enjoying his time. He still had a fresh thobe that was white. He looked like he was living life, bro. I'm telling you. When the pictures came out now, obviously.
These people, they're
prison apparently.
But anyway, it was kind of but obviously the coup happened, but his second in charge came into power. And obviously,
what's his name?
Obviously,
they all got funny names. Aoud, something like that.
Aoud
bin. He's got a Sahabi surname. I was like, he didn't even deserve that surname. Aoud, that's it. Aoud bin Auf.
Yeah, I was gonna Auf. Yeah.
Aoud bin Auf. That's it. So he came into power.
Anyway, he came into power on the 11th of April. The second in charge, who was second in charge anyway, And I think what he did, no, he didn't replace. So basically, yeah, sorry, the people weren't having it. The people weren't gonna have just another change of face.
That's one they said. They had this big slogan. So the first they said تسقط. We just want تسقط بس. They said we want it to fall when Omar Bashir was in power. And then Omar Bashir went, and this Aoud came. And why I'm smiling is because there's actually a funny pun in Arabic with his name, because it means replacement in Arabic. Aoud,
he's replaced.
Yeah, so he can replace.
That's the power of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala's plan. You know, they plan. Allah plans. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is the best of planners, because look, even his name, even down to his name is.
But he wasn't a long replacement. He was not a long replacement, because when he came into power, when he was the leader of Sudan, people said no, تسقط مرة ثانية. We want it to fall a second time because we're not having it. But I think, do you know what it is? I think now, generally speaking, the Muslims in the Muslim world, they're not gonna fall for the same trick over however many times.
No.
Because in Egypt it happened. In
Tunisia.
In Tunisia it happened. Tunisia is a fantastic example. And now the people of Sudan are looking at it, thinking, "Oh, I'm
Even
Bashir."
Algeria.
Algeria, exactly. Now the same from the same cabinet or the same group. What's his name? Bouteflika, his colleagues, if you like, are coming to power. Well, it's the same party, it's the same faces.
The thing is, the people are not being. See, originally they were calling for just like a change of the face, just get rid of the person, because they were being persecuted so much, and so they just associate with this person. And I think, especially for example, what happened in Egypt, where they got rid of Mubarak, and then they just had essentially, like, now Sisi's back in power and it's the same person. So in Sudan, they were like, we're not having it. So within one day, they're saying we're calling for a change of the regime, a change of the system. Within one day, the second guy is gone. But what he does is he replaces
with another
everyone.
guy.
He obviously replaces himself with another guy, and this guy replaces all of, because Sudan is split into like America, like 7 states. So he
really 7?
Yeah,
oh.
I think it's 7.
I didn't know it was split. I thought
yeah. It was not, obviously it's not like, but it's like that.
I know what you mean.
They have individual governances and their own, like, you know, obviously the walis, like the people who
no, I didn't know that.
the area.
Yeah.
So he replaced all of them with military leaders.
Exactly.
But these are all new faces. So what it is that the people I think are fairly confused now, because it's like, well, this is a new face. We don't fully trust him, but he's not the same as those other Bashir and everyone. He's 100%. Not, you know. So that's why there's a bit of confusion what's happening now.
And I'll tell you where the in my opinion at least, where the people of Sudan made I'd say not quite the best choice. And I say this as an outsider, and may Allah SWT make them successful and give them strength in their protests. They when Abdel Fattah, what's his name, Al-Hanif,
that's it, no,
Al-Burhan, Al-Burhan came into power. He came into power after this supposed second name.
He's the new guy, Abdel Fattah Burhan.
Yeah.
He's the new guy they put in power.
Yes, so Omar, it was just for everyone, I know there's a lot of names being mentioned. Omar Bashir, Awad bin Auf, and now it is Abdel Fattah Burhan. Sorry, his name's confusing. When he came into power, he said we recognize the SPA, the Sudanese Professional Associates, the people leading the protests, as the representatives of Sudan. He said we recognize you guys. So now let us talk, because they said, because we're not willing to give you everything you want, but we need to negotiate. We need to come to terms where you have to compromise, and we have to compromise some, and we come to an agreement, and everyone's happy. And that's the biggest mistake, because essentially they wanted the government to fall. Yeah. But now you've sat with the government. Yeah, basically. So when I saw that happen, I was actually sad. I was thinking, that's not the best choice, because you want a change of government, but you're sitting with the government to negotiate a change of government. It's not going to happen. Yeah, because what the military have done basically is who've taken over. Actually, I think it's important, before we carry on talking about military and all this kind of stuff, is to highlight what happened with the killings, because so that in this point in time, 11th and 12th of April, where they had all the problems with the government, and during Ramadan, there was a lot of killings of protesters, and these were actually enacted and they were given orders by the people who started doing the killings. They weren't actually just the general military,
they weren't. They were a militia
Rapid
group.
forces, yeah.
Yeah, called the Janjaweed.
Yeah.
And essentially, basically, they are. So I was researching into who they are essentially, and they are people they were a group formed by Omar Bashir when he was in power, as a militia group to be loyal to him and to basically prevent any military coups. If any coups came from the military, so a coup is essentially like the military overthrowing the government, and there were a few over the years. If anyone tried that, he had his people, and I was researching into who they are, and essentially what he did was these are just tribes. These are all just tribes who lived in the deserts, who lived very, very poor lives, and he gave them an immense amount of wealth, more wealth than they can ever imagine in their lives, so that they could basically be loyal to him. He bought their loyalty. And that's why they're still loyal to him. Even though he's gone, they're still loyal to him. They're still killing, doing all these killings. And, they're actually made up of many child soldiers.
100%.
And they're just basically these tribes who,
Sorry.
No, but yeah, basically these tribes who have grown up their entire lives is just to be part of this militia Janjaweed, and they have no morals. They've been killing people for years.
In 2003, he established, or the Janjaweed they were established. So, like you said, it's been a long time since they've been established. They've built a relationship with him. Yeah. So, like you said, they're very loyal to him.
They're very loyal, and the thing is, they've been killing and raping and doing all this stuff for a long time. And during Ramadans in the past, so when on the 8th of Ramadan there was the big massacre, and people started talking about these. They just started massacring people, and they were raping women. And during Ramadan, and on Eid day itself, the day before Eid, they killed. This is the big statistics. They killed 500 people. That everyone's talking about now.
You know what I find interesting that's happened with the rapid forces, they call them
the Janjaweed,
the Janjaweed, yeah. Janjaweed, is it? Janjaweed, okay.
Like Ganjaweed, but because they're high. No, I'm joking.
So what they've been doing is they've actually been leaving arms on the floor. So they've been actually leaving guns and different weapons on the floor. And some analysts are saying that this is to kind of get the masses to pick up these weapons,
to provoke them,
and then end up a new Syria.
Oh, subhanallah! Because basically, they want a war.
That's so dirty, subhanallah.
Yeah,
exactly. Because they need a reason to kill. Right now, they look bad. We as the government of Sudan, to the outer world, we look like criminals. We're killing these people, so we need a reason to kill. So now there's many reports from on the ground reports, that there's been weapons left just scattered around for people to pick up. So when they pick them up, when a soldier shoots, or one of these Janjaweeds, rapid forces, shoots him, he's saying if he gets interviewed or gets recorded, he'll say what? He had a gun as well.
Exactly. At the end of the day, they're protecting themselves, but what does it do? That leaving that gun on the ground is provoking that person to stop his peaceful protest, which they've been doing so far, and basically start a war.
Yeah, but they haven't, alhamdulillah. They're smart enough to realise.
But the Janjaweed, they started trying to legitimize their murders of everyone by saying we need to get rid of all the druggies and we need to get rid of all the criminals. There's too many criminals in the areas. That's why we started shooting and whatever. This is what they've been publicising. And so, but obviously people aren't falling for that. Exactly. People are more woke than that. Alhamdulillah, they listen to Stay Woke podcast, and they're woke. But anyway, but now obviously they need to find that. What else can we justify our murders with?
Exactly. Yes.
But anyway, this is the main reason why a lot of the social media and started raising awareness, because obviously the Janjaweed and the government they cut off the internet. And so it meant that there's no reports from within on the ground, like proper, news reports. Yeah. And so because these things are happening, and because the people themselves are telling people, and they're calling out to the rest of the world saying, Muslim Ummah, do not let us be silent, do not let our suffering be silenced. That's why everyone has started coming to social media.
Yeah.
But anyway, so alhamdulillah, okay, we understand those points, but coming back to...
I hope that's a good brief.
Yeah.
I hope that's a good brief in terms of what happened.
But exactly. So these are the general points of what's exactly happened. But coming back to what we were talking about the negotiations, what's actually happening in terms of the governance. So the military have come and they've said, listen, we're gonna for 2 years we're gonna rule essentially, and we're going to try and figure out a system, yeah. And so they've asked the people, let's start negotiating. So they started negotiating with different groups of people, and the main people who are negotiating with them are the Freedom and Change Movement.
SBA Mandem.
Yeah. So, but so the people are all pretty much united in that they want a people-run government.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're trying to negotiate with the military.
Yeah.
And so you're saying that.
I don't think. First of all, we got to understand something. If the call of the brothers and sisters in Sudan is they want a change of government, you can't make the mistake of talking with the government. You've got to say, we don't recognize you, which is what they said. We don't at the start. We don't recognize you as a legitimate power to rule us. We don't want you to rule us, you know. But now for the SPA or the Freedom and Change Movement, they're the same people, to come in and say they have already negotiated with them. It's not gonna reach a conclusion which the Sudanese people want, because you've got a compromise in a bargain, you know, and the military is not going to give them what they want. They're not, and I think one of the conditions was that they remove the people get out of the sitting in front of the military council, because they were literally blocking the main road of Khartoum. And if that goes, because remember, well, it's kind of pretty much gone now. That was a stamp of our power as the Sudanese people. We're staying outside the military council, and we want a solution. And at that point, actually, that's when the military were willingly inviting people to hear their opinion. That's when you saw different groups from different backgrounds come and propose. But when you, as a representative of the Sudanese people, the SPA, as they refer to themselves as, the representative of the Sudanese people, negotiate with the same government you're trying to bring down or you want to replace, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But yeah, that's generally what's been happening in Sudan. But in terms of the response in the UK, at least, what do you think of it?
It's been interesting. It's interesting because
profile pictures.
Yeah. So I'll tell you how I even discovered about the whole Sudan. I didn't know anything about it. It's like, let's go 2-3 weeks ago. I don't know nothing that's happening in Sudan. I'll be honest with you. I didn't even think that. I don't know, like, these countries that there's so much things happening within them, even especially like places like Algeria. It's just there's no coverage on it at all, so you don't know what's going on at all. Do you know what I'm saying? So I started seeing the whole change your DP blue stuff. Obviously interested me. Why is everyone changing DP? And personally, I was like, I don't know about this, innit? It might just be one of these little fads, innit? I don't want to get involved. But then I started seeing people talking about it. Then I started seeing a lot of, this was in a very short time, within a few days, I started seeing posts about, hashtag pray for Sudan. That was the first thing. And then there was all the posts about, okay, look, there's been murders, there's been massacres, there's been a lot of rapes of men and women, and these protesters who are just being, all this kind of stuff, right? And so that's what interested me. I was like, okay, subhanAllah, there's actually stuff going on, but I want to understand what's happening, what's the actual situation. So we did all this research about what's happening. And then, and then basically I released a poem on my Conscious Rhymes account about, it was just something I wrote within 2 minutes. And it was just, I just wanted to say, look, I don't know exactly what's happening, but we're finding out slowly. But what's important is to make sure that the voices of the Sudanese people who are being silenced because of the lack of media coverage, they can't be silenced. And so it's very, very, very important that we, as social media people on social media, that we don't allow the voices to be silenced. So yes, this Blue DP thing, it's a very bold and very clear statement saying, I stand with Sudan, but also there's something happening, and you should start learning about it. Yeah. So that was my poem, and the stuff that I was posting on my social media was all about we need to have an understanding of what's happening, and don't just hide behind this Blue DP thing. If you're going to change 100%. Your DP, don't just. So my main point I was making is that this Blue the Blue DP, the history of it is that this brother called Muhammad Matar.
Yeah.
He was at Brunel University, and he was in Sudan, and he was defending some women from being shot, and then they shot him essentially. So alhamdulillah, he died as shaheed. But his favorite color was this shade of blue, so everyone started posting the shade of blue, and that's quite a beautiful story, to be honest. But it's gone crazy in terms of like, subhanallah, all these massive, even like there's a lot of non-Muslim influencers and people who have these millions of followers on their accounts start changing their DP blue. So I think it's a good thing in terms of raising the awareness, right? But where does it go from there? That's what I was trying to get at. Where does it go from just raising awareness? Yeah. There needs to be proper raising awareness of what's exactly happening, and understanding of the political situation, and then personally I think that there needs to be pressure put on Muslim leaders, the Muslim rulers around the world who are silent about this as well, because a lot of people are turning to like the British government and America and saying, what are you doing? Why are you not intervening? We don't want them to intervene. I'm sorry, they've intervened in they've created the problem of Sudan in the first place. As we were talking about the whole history, they're the ones who drew the borders for Sudan and then split it, and then just created so many problems. And 100%. Their infiltration in every single country in the world, they've just ruined it.
Exactly.
They've just raped it of its resources, and they've left it to just, become
survive
barren
on its own. Yeah.
Exactly. Saying, oh, we've given you independence. It's like, subhanAllah, these people, they fought against, like even when they fought for independence, they fought against this tyrannical rulership, this colonizer who came in and just took over, stripped the land of its resources, and then they placed these rulers who just were basically dictators, and they left the country in ruins. So
100%.
My point is that, look, the Muslim leaders who have a duty to the ummah, firstly, because these are Muslims, and even if they're not Muslims, like, they have a duty to the entire world, But at the end of the day, these people are being murdered. Their blood, there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ was walking around the Kaaba and doing tawaf, and he calls out to the Kaaba and he says, "Oh Kaaba, verily one drop of a Muslim's blood is more sacred to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than you and everything that you contain." And look how holy and blessed and amazing the Kaaba is, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Kaaba, and how that is his house, and how amazing it is, and how much it means to him, and that one drop of a Muslim's blood is more sacred to him than all of that. How many people have been murdered? How many drops of blood is that? It's innumerable amount. 100%. And so this is why I think that the power of social media is to make sure that these things do not get forgotten, and that it's not silenced. We're continuing to raise awareness, but to not just hide behind it, to pressure the Muslim rulers to act, and to expose the fact that they're not acting.
Yeah. Do you know what worries me though? It worries me that if we end up just changing our DPs or profile pictures to blue and thinking that's enough.
I feel like initially a lot of people were doing that, because initially I saw the whole change the blue thing, and everyone was just saying #pray for Sudan.
Exactly.
#pray for Sudan.
And that's my worry, man, because that's not enough. That's nothing. That's nothing.
Like, alhamdulillah, we know that the power of dua is the weapon of the believer, right? But I think a lot of people have this misconception that dua is simply raising hands and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dua is not that. That is the first step in your dua. But dua requires action.
Action, 100%.
And
sorry, didn't Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam say in hadith, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran," whoever from you sees a wrongdoing, فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ, let him change with his hand. Okay, we live in the UK. We can't change it with our hand. فَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ, and if he can't, the hadith carries on, فَبِلِسَانِهِ, then with his tongue. So we need to understand that changing your DP to blue and hashtagging pray for Sudan and doing nothing about it, and not putting effort to understand the political reality of Sudan or political situation of Sudan, and understand where it's going, or the intention behind what the government is doing, and trying to raise awareness, correct awareness. Not just there's a difference between raising awareness, oh, this is what's happening, and
there's a difference between #I stand with Sudan and then everything else which actually comes with it, which is actually talking about
exactly
this is what's actually happening in Sudan. This is the situation. Like, people are being killed. You can say that, alhamdulillah, say that all you want, but if you're not talking about who's actually doing the killings,
exactly
what's actually happening in terms of, it's very important to understand the situation of the government as well, because this is how it links to the solution, right? But I was going to say as well that on that point, so obviously the next part of the hadith is about hating it in your heart, and this is the lowest part of
It's the
Iman.
weakest of Iman. There's another narration that says...
And that just, I think, personally, saying hashtag pray for Sudan and not doing anything else, right, and just change your DP blue, I think that this is actually just a scapegoat thingy, and it is something where you're saying, I hate it in my heart.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to accuse anyone of having the lowest of Iman, but this is the hadith, right, that, you got to be fearful for yourself. Like, we've got to be constantly checking ourselves, even myself, because I changed my deeply blue, yeah, and then I tried to talk about it, but what have I done since then? I'll be honest with you, I haven't done anything. So is it a situation where I've turned to I'm hating in my heart again? I don't want to be in that situation. But another point on the about dua, in my poem I've said dua without action is shaitan's greatest distraction, because it's shaitan who is telling you do dua and that's it, everything's going to get solved. This is not the way dua works.
Maybe I'll put it that you want to make dua, which is a good thing, but shaitan puts a cap on it and says, oh, that's it, why not just end it there?
I was going to say though, in Surah Fatiha, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. And the tafsir of this ayah, obviously it means it is you that we worship and it is you that we ask for help. So in the tafsir of this ayah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts these in order, saying it is you that we worship, this is the action, and then it is you that we ask for help, this is the dua. And so it is important that the action is you do the action first in everything. Even, for example, if you're if you're going to do something, right, you make the decision, you do the action, and then you make istikhara saying, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make sure that it's good for me, and if it isn't good for me, then take it away from me. That's what the dua of istikhara is. And so the action is first, and then the worship or the asking for help comes afterwards. So that's the point, is that yes, we have trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He can help us, but we need to be putting in that work beforehand. And so that's why I think it's so important not to just change the DP to blue, and to actually be raising awareness about this issue properly, and to actually be calling for because we're talking about us in the West, right? Us as people who are not in Sudan, as who most of us do not have links to Sudan, in terms of we don't know people in Sudan and all that kind of stuff. So we need to be pressuring, the global community to start waking up.
Yep, 100%. 100%. I think a point that you mentioned that's very, very true is that we need to understand that we need to try to develop or build pressure towards Muslim countries who are capable of resolving the issue in Sudan. Because the fair enough, on us, the public, the general masses, the hadith of acting, the part of speaking out your tongue against a munkar, that falls on us. But for a leader, the first part, which is let him change it with his hand, that's what falls on them. Because they have the ability to change it with their hand. They have the ability to go into Sudan and protect the people.
Also, the people and the ummah have a right over them. As a leader, as someone with influence in that way, the ummah have a right over them. So in the same way that the ummah, Sudanese people, they have a right over us to be changing with our tongues, or to be speaking about this issue. And the ummah have a right, we all have a right over these leaders, or these people who have the ability to change stuff with their hands, to actually be doing something.
Yes, 100%.
But they all, 100% of them are silent.
Yep.
Silence. It's not even about we're not doing anything. It's silence, and that silence is deafening, because the world is seeing, even the British media and these people proclaim to be, oh yeah, we're completely impartial, or we don't have any agendas in our media, and they also claim to be like, oh yeah, and we're the promoters of the correct way of life, the promoters of freedom, promoters of the having the best solution to mankind and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they're not even speaking about this issue. They can't, because they don't even want to give it any credit. They don't want to. SubhanAllah, it's disgusting.
If our countries, the Muslim world, are not speaking about it, then why do we expect the British or the American or the European governments to raise awareness about it or write about it in newspaper? There is an issue, man. There is a big issue which needs to be addressed, that we need to start taking actions. We need to come out of this comfort zone of changing DPs and hashtagging stuff and walking around. I don't know if they start doing it, walking around in a blue shirt or whatever. That is not enough. That is not enough. I'm sorry to say.
It might be a thing, I don't even know.
It might sound disheartening, but it's not enough. You know, we as Muslims, our deen is bigger than just praying salah, giving charity, and making dua. Yes, we make dua, like Yusuf said, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. It is you we worship, which is an action, and it is you we seek help from. You know, do, then ask. You know? So that's a key message for me. That do, then ask. Act. You know, we need to raise awareness, talk about it, talk about the correct understanding of Sudan and the correct way to resolve Sudan, and then ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. You know, what do we want? Do we want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to come down himself and resolve Sudan? It's on us. It's on us, the Muslims in general, the Muslim Ummah, to raise awareness and talk about it and come to a solution. You know,
we can't just be expecting, that we're going to wait for
it's not Badr. Allah is not going to send angels down to resolve it.
But even in Badr, they acted.
Exactly.
They were, yes, they have, see, this is the point. We have tawakkul in Allah, but we have trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He is going to aid us. And He will send angels down to help us. However, we don't just stand there. In the Battle of Badr, they didn't just stand there and just...
Exactly, they fought fiercely, yeah.
You know, there were 300 people versus, a few thousand or whatever. They didn't just stand there and say, yeah, the angel's going to do everything for us. No. They were like, we have trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to help us when we act.
Exactly, so their knuckles on the line,
and that's it. But you know, having said all of that, it's really filled me with a lot of, alhamdulillah, hope, and it's made me very happy to see this ummah so united in wanting some kind of change or wanting to promote this issue. And you know, people are not hiding behind, you know, everyone changing their DPs. It's actually something really quite beautiful to see, you know, how everyone's coming together and just like, you know, I feel like maybe a lot of people are just confused. They're just confused about, we don't really know what else to do. Even putting the hashtag Pray for Sudan, it's not that they're thinking deeply and they're just thinking, oh, I'm lazy, I don't want to do anything, you know. It's not that it's just that people, I don't think people put the effort into actually thinking about it. And so a lot of people are just confused about what to do, so they thought, okay, look, I'm going to try to do my bit, you know. But I think that's why we need to have an important understanding of clarity as to where to go with this. Yeah,
no, I think definitely you're correct in terms of people need to come to an understanding of the reality of Sudan and then act. And some people, you're right, there's a lot of us that are confused in terms of what we should do. That's why, and alhamdulillah, look, I agree with you that it's amazing to see that people have taken initiative, you know, to go out and change, even though it's not a big thing, it's really not a big thing, change their pictures and hashtag. But people need to start, look, there's a problem. We can study the problem as long as we can, and that's good, because you understand the issue well. But with that, you need to write a solution. Because Sudan is in dire need for a solution right now, And even the military council themselves, they don't know what they want to do.
The people confused as well.
The people?
Because you've got multiple different, like, alhamdulillah, they've united in that they want toppling of the regime, but they're confused as to what to do next now. And that's why you're having all these different discussions and negotiations. Exactly. But there's nothing really coming about with it, right? It's been, April was 2 months ago, you know, and it's still been a few weeks even since all these other murders and whatever. But there's not much much change happening. And I think that as Muslims, we need to be looking to the Prophet ﷺ as what he did in situations similar to this, because he as we said in the last episode, that he was the walking, talking Quran, in terms of he was the perfect enactment of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down in his book. And so he brought about, he changed, basically, look, when we look at the people who are...
I think it's a very good analogy, because Quraysh is literally, you could say, the Sudanese government, because they're killing people. The Sahaba used to kidnap as they were walking. They're doing that as well.
Massive persecutions.
Exactly, the Sahaba were killed, so the military council were doing that as well. Quraysh hated the fact that the Muhammad sallallahu and the Sahaba and all the believers at the time went against their way of life, or went against their rules. And the Sudanese people, the Sudanese government are doing the same thing. They hate the fact that the Sudanese people are kind of protesting and going against them. And I think we need to draw some similarities as to what did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam do at his time that we can do, or we can promote to do for the Sudanese people, which is the fact that they need to expose, first of all, the faults within this current system. And I don't think that's a hard job. That's not a hard job to expose, because, bro, they've killed enough people. And the SPA, the Sudanese Professional Associates, what they're calling for has already been tried in Egypt, a democracy. And it did not work, because essentially a democracy is a lie, as we've seen in Britain. Look, one of the principles of democracy is the consent of the government. The consent of the government, which is the people get what they want. People in the UK wanted Brexit. They've done every single thing to make sure it doesn't happen. Democracy brings the worst types of rulers as well. In America, you have Trump. Before Trump, you had Obama. Before Obama, you had Bush. Before Bush, you had Clinton. Clinton was known for what? Why was he taking office? Because he was cheating on his wife. Like, look at the type of rulers that these systems kind of bring into life. And they don't look. The thing is, democracy is a big lie to people, because Islam actually gives what the people want. Islam gives you the consent of the government. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam called to the people. He was a prophet. He was a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he called to the people of Medina to bring 4 of their representatives. Yeah, and they would come and speak and speak on behalf of the people of Medina. And he was a prophet, and that was for to elect the leader, the Khalifa, who would lead the Muslims. An election happens within an Islamic system, not within a democracy. Because in a democracy, you don't get what you want,
bro. It's the
bro.
illusion of an election. It's every 5 years you can have your say. That's fine. But the point is that
it's just a change of face, like we said.
I think from a basis of it, what a democracy, or what this idea of democracy is that man and humans and people, we will all discuss together on the laws and what laws to make. And the problem with that is that we are flawed beings. We as humans, we are drawn towards our desires, and so and we as humans, like, it's just a very flimsy, like, way of making rules.
It's a very flimsy way of thinking.
It's a very flimsy way of thinking to say that, oh, you humans, we should be able to make rules for society, and they're going to be the best rules, and that we're going to accept that. And we can see, and even like especially Western society and how times have changed, how opinions are changing, how all of how what is good and what is bad keeps changing.
100%.
But the thing is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is perfect, and the Quran that He sent is perfect, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, everything in his actions, it was perfect. And so we look to that and we say, okay, look, I think a better system of rulership and a better legislation system is one that was created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because
100%. It makes rational sense.
We adopt Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we adopt an understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect, and that He should determine how we pray, how we eat food, how we wash ourselves when we go to the toilet, how we should do all these other things that govern our life. So why are we not looking to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in terms of ruling over other people, and in terms of looking for a solution to governance?
100%.
And so the Sudanese people, and maybe it won't happen in Sudan because they're a very confused society.
Yeah.
But what we do need is a united Islamic government, right? That has a play in the world. Because all these other affairs that happen in the world as well, they're a global issue, and the Muslims are all scattered about everywhere, and there's nothing that unites the Muslims that can actually tackle these global issues. And so we need something that can tackle them on a global level.
100% agree, because like you said, democracy is this big assumption that we're going to come together.
It's hypocrisy. Democracy is hypocrisy.
Democracy is hypocrisy, 100%. That you're going to come together and somehow manage a whole society, a whole land of people, and it has not worked. And I promise you, it would never work. Look, it doesn't work even in the UK. Look, this is the oldest democracy standing, the UK, and they couldn't give the people what they wanted from Brexit. How? And one of the principles.
And there's so many different other walks of life.
In the second oldest democracy, America, they've got someone like Trump ruling them. Like, really. That is silliness.
They've got just silly examples, but just simple examples is like the whole health system. Even the health system here is such a flawed system. Like, it doesn't support the people in any way. But like in America, you know, they got such a flawed health system that healthcare is so expensive because democracy is just, it's all about desires, isn't it? It's all about
scratch my back, I scratch yours.
Exactly.
for the
Exactly.
the democracy revolves around money. These campaigns, yeah, that you see when elections are on, where do you think these people get money from? Where
the
do you
businesses.
think the Conservatives are sponsored by? I remember reading it. Wallahi, Allah's my witness. There was at least around 20, from 15 to 20 private businesses that were sponsoring the Conservative Party. And do you think that they're going to do that for free?
That's not even like unknown stuff. Everyone knows that.
It's open. Like,
look at Grenfell. Okay, look at the Grenfell Tower incident. Like, obviously they still haven't talked about that, but let's look at why are they not talking about it? Why are they not actually solving those issues? I read something where Sajid Javid, the Home Secretary, right, who is yeah, exactly. But anyway, that's a different issue. His job is to make sure look after these things that happen within the country, right? And to be accounting people and whatever. I think his best friend or something like that is the CEO of Celotex. Celotex is the company which put the cladding on the outside of the building, which became flammable. And so and then also in the area of the politicians in that area, all the MPs, none of them have been accounted for the negligence of this issue, because they own that building and they own a lot of other buildings in the area. They are landlords. So they directly benefit from all of that stuff.
This is democracy.
Exactly. So this is the hypocrisy of democracy.
100%.
And so
we've mentioned so many things. First of all, democracy is never going to work. First of all, in Muslim mode, because look, the people's heritage is Islam. The people's ideas are Islam. The people's vision is Islam. Why would they accept something not from Islam? It doesn't make any sense. Secondly, democracy does not work. We've seen it in the UK, we've seen it in the US, we've seen it in some different countries where the people's desires are not fulfilled, because democracy is not designed to fulfill or meet the demands of the people. It's designed to meet the demands which suit the elite. That's why all these parties are sponsored by all these private companies, which I can't remember the names of them, but there's so many, bro, that you think these companies are not going to sponsor the Conservative Party for free. They're getting something back in return, which is what they want implemented. So we don't want to fall in the same hole. As Muslims, we love our brothers and sisters. We want the best for ourselves as an ummah, which is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed for us, an Islamic government, or we call it Khilafah basically, which is a government that rules by Islam, and you get exactly what you want. Wallahi, if you look at what the Sudanese people are desiring, what they're calling for, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's government allows us. The Khilaf system, the Islamic system allows that. You want an election process that happens under that. And you know what? You have to elect a Khalifa within 3 days. So unlike democracy, you don't have all the time in the world to go campaign £1 billion to make yourself look good. You have to elect him within 3 days. In the Islamic system, you can't take longer than 3 days. On the other hand, democracy, like I said, they take months campaigning to make themselves look good. Yes. So their intentions are purified from the street. What do you want? What do you need? Sorry, you want to be the Khalifa? Okay, what do you have to offer? They have 3 days to impress the people, because we need to elect Khalifa ASAP.
It's not about fake, just appearances. It's not about, I'm promising this, I'm promising that, I'm promising this. It's about, look,
we got to offer.
This is an actual amana from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I'm going to be accounted for, and so therefore, if I'm going to rule over you, and I don't want, and most people do not even want to rule, because it's such a big,
you don't get money.
So many of the Khalifs in the past, and I think even Umar Khattab, he said, look, it's such a big responsibility. It's not like he would choose that, but it's something that is so rewarding as well, in terms of, because you're leading the Muslim Ummah, and you're providing proper solutions. But anyway, I think that's something, inshallah, that's something that we should be uniting on, in terms of that's a very clear solution.
Sudan, inshallah.
But when we talk about Sudan, we talk about the issue in Sudan, it's important for us to not just hide behind the changing of the DP and even look, it's been a week since all the DP changing, and now a lot of people are not talking about Sudan. The DP is still blue.
That's the thing with the trend.
But exactly, and it's just died down, and other irrelevant things in the media have just taken over again. And I'm not going to get into that. But subhanAllah, it's a sad situation, But
That requires action from Muslim Ummah.
I have a lot of hope for our Ummah. Honestly, I do.
100%.
This Ummah
100%.
is beautiful Ummah, and it's so beautiful to see the unity, even under something so little like this little DP. But it gives me hope for the future.
Inshallah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. I think we outlined the situation in Sudan quite well.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about all the different, kind of things that happen in Sudan right now, and
The response of the
people to the situation as well.
And the solution for Sudan, inshallah.
Yeah.
Khair, do you have anything else to mention, Mr. Yusuf?
I think for today, that's it, inshallah. I think we'll end it there. Jazakallah khair for everyone for listening.
Mm-hmm.
Really appreciate it. And please support the podcast. Help us get a bit more exposure. Give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. If you're listening on iTunes, give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Subscribe. All that kind of stuff.
Do everything.
Support your brothers. No, but also, like, we're trying to talk about truths. Like, this is about staying woke. This is about being conscious of what's happening everywhere. And delving deeper into these situations.
The
like
reality
today,
of the situations, yes.
Sudan, there's so much stuff, people talking so much about Sudan, but there's a lot of just very surface level talk about it. And so inshallah, like, what we try to do today is to go deeper into that. And that's what we're trying to do with everything as well. So these are real relevant issues. And inshallah, I hope you guys benefited.
Inshallah, hopefully.
We'll see you next time.
Inshallah, next
on,
time.
The Staying Woke podcast.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
You don't want to reply. They have to say wa alaikum salam.
I didn't reply as well. Wait,
My rib cage hurts actually.